who see nirvana lane that the world exists, or that the world exists not, or that the world exists and exists not, or that the world and nirvana are not two different things. Again, there are some who, differing from all these philosophers, and in possession of all knowledge, proclaim like a roaring lion that to understand thoroughly what is meant by the manifestation of mind itself, chitta, matra, not to get attached to the external world, to be disengaged from the four propositions, to abide in the Yahabhutam view of things, not to fall into the errors of dualism, to be free from the ideas of subject and object, to stand above all forms of knowledge, not to get attached to any one form of truth, to abide in the realization of the truth revealed to one's inmost consciousness, to perceive the twofold truth of egolessness, to be devoid of the two kinds of evil passions, to be cleansed of the two kinds of hindrance, to discipline oneself in all the stages of bodhisattvahood one after another, whereby, entering upon the state of Buddhahood, to realize all the great samadhis such as Maya, and forever to go beyond the citta, manas, and manavijñāna. This is indeed to attain nirvana. O Mahamati, all these philosophers' views except the last mentioned are based on the imagination and are not in accordance with the truth. They are forsaken by the wise, for they are dualistic and nirvana is imagined where it is not. There is really no nirvana where one may enter or come out. The philosophers, each adhering to his own thesis, fall into erroneous views contrary to reason, thereby achieving nothing but the wanderings and tribulations of the mind and will. O Mahamati, therefore, you and other bodhisattvas should avoid them. To quote the gathas attached here. Nirvana is variously viewed and discriminated by the philosophers, but they are no more than imaginations. There is no way in them that leads up to emancipation. The philosophers who are not released from the dualism of fettered and fettering and who are far apart from the right way of thinking, imagine emancipation where there is no real emancipation. All sorts of doctrines are maintained by various philosophers, but as they issue from the wrong discriminations of conference-used minds, their emancipation is not a true one. As all the philosophers are fascinated with the ideas of something done and something doing, they are upholders of doctrines of being and non-being, and their emancipation is no true one. Those ignorant ones who delight in debating and idle talk cannot have a wider view of truth. Mere talking is the source of sorrow in the triple world. It is the truth only that destroys sorrow. It is like an image reflected in a mirror. It is seen there but it is not real. The one mind is seen as a duality by the ignorant when it is reflected in the mirror constructed by their habit energy. From not knowing that all that is seen is of mind only, there takes place discrimination and hence duality. But when it is known that it is nothing but mind, no discrimination evolves. It is true that mind reveals itself as multitudinousness, but in itself it is devoid of predicates. Appearances are there but not to be seen in the way discriminated by the ignorant. The triple world is no more than the product of discrimination. There is no external world of objects. It is owing to discrimination that the multitudinousness of things appears, which, however, is not understood by the ignorant. Lane various sutras. Discrimination is the subject of discourse. It is on account of ideas and names, for apart from naming no meaning is attainable. The essence of Buddhahood. The self-realization that is to be attained by the bodhisattva is none other than the Buddha's own inner consciousness, self-illuminating as well as world-illuminating. Therefore, when we know what is the nature of this enlightenment attained by the Buddha, we shall also have some glimpse of the content of the Pratyat Mariyaj Phenomikara, the subject matter of the Lankavatara. According to the Sutra, what constitutes the essence of the Buddhahood is neither a thing made nor a thing not made. It is neither cause nor effect, it is neither predicable nor unpredicable, it is neither describable nor indescribable, neither subject to perception nor beyond perception. Why? Because by applying any one of these terminological explanations to this case, we commit a logical offense. If Buddhata, the essence of Tathagatahood, is something made, it is impermanent. And if it is impermanent, all things made will be Tathagatas, which is impossible. If, on the other hand, it is a thing not made, it will be without a substance, and all efforts to realize it will be to no purpose, as it is like the hare's horns or a barren woman's child. For are they not all not made, unreal, merely imagined? Again, if the essence of Tathagatahood is neither cause nor effect, it is then neither being nor not being. And this being the case, it lies outside the four propositions. The latter belong to the worldly way of talk, and what lies outside them is no more than talk. It is like speaking of a barren woman's child. This exists only in talk and does not come under the four propositions. As it does not come under them, the wise know it is beyond their logical survey. The meaning of all the Tathagata's words is to be thus understood by the wise. This passage is taken from the Sanskrit text, which coincides with one of the Chinese versions, the T-ang. But when we weigh the meaning of the passage, we grow somewhat confidence used about it because it is apparent contradiction to the general drift of thought that has been explained above as characteristic of the Lankavatara teaching. For if the essence of Buddhahood is something like the barren woman's child existing only in name and placed beyond the survey of the wise in the sense that it has no truth in it, the object of all Buddhist discipline will be set at naught. If, however, it could be understood in the sense that the truth is beyond the logical survey of even the wise, and, therefore, it is an object of direct intuition, altogether beyond the reach of popular parlance which is made up of the four propositions, the quoted passage would be consistent with the rest of the text. The sentence referring to the barren woman's child as mere talk and beyond the four propositions will have to be altered. Plain fact, the way translation reads quite differently. The four propositions belong to the worldly way of talk. O Mahamati, if the truth does not go beyond the four propositions, it is no more than a word like when speaking of a barren woman's child. O Mahamati, this belongs to mere speech, coming under the four propositions, and if the truth should come under them, the wise would not take it up. Evidently there is some discrepancy in the text. The earliest Chinese version, in fact, that is, the Sung, reads simply and is quite intelligible, showing perhaps that this is a more original text, not mixed with gloss and other addenda. O Mahamati, if it is neither an object nor a cause, then it is neither being nor non-being, it lies outside the four propositions. The latter belong to worldly talk. When it or the essence of Buddhahood lies outside the four propositions, it is beyond them, and being beyond them as such, the wise accept it. The meaning of all the Tathagata's propositions is to be understood by the wise thus, that is, as beyond the four propositions. Single quote. When Buddhism speaks of the egolessness of all things, this must be understood in the way suggested above, that is, in the sense that while all things have their characteristic, they are without self-substance. Inasmuch as the cow is not the horse and the horse is not a cow, they are quite distinct one from the other. Their individuality is to be reckoned with, but as to each possessing any substance in itself or anything that remains eternally so except its appearance, that cannot be. Therefore, things in one sense are as they are, but in another sense they are not. This is what is meant by Buddhist phenomenalism, but we are not to be carried away by its doctrine of emptiness as was explained before, as Buddhism has after all something to affirm. Its superficially paradoxical way of presenting the truth is often baffling to logicians. The Lankavatara proceeds to say that the ignorant and confident used to use their own way of discrimination to grasp the theory of non-ego. But as existence is really beyond any system of categories, the Tathagata's wisdom alone is capable of penetrating into reality. It is, therefore, declared by him that he is not distinct from the skandhas, nor is he identical with them. The two horns of a cow are distinguished one from the other, for the one is longer or shorter than the other, and in color they may differ. But they are of one nature, as they are both horns. In a similar way, the Tathagata is different from what constitutes matter, and yet he is not different. Again, he is designated as one who is emancipated, but he is not one with emancipation, nor is he different from it. Therefore, the essence of Buddhahood is neither eternal nor transient, neither made nor not made, neither composite nor uncomposite, neither knowledge nor the known, neither predicable nor unpredicable, neither of the skandhas nor not of them, neither describable nor indescribable. It is beyond all measurement, it is not to be brought under any forms of category. We may talk of it as talk we must, but we can never reach it through words. For it is unborn, and consequently not subject to destruction. It is like unto the sky beyond logical construction, and no amount of intellectual tricks will bring it within one's grasp. The essence transcends measurement and the senses. The nature of enlightenment is not limited by measurement and senses, it is neither an effect nor a cause, it is neither enlightening nor enlightened. It is neither predicated nor predicating. The skandhas, causation, enlightenment are not visible anywhere to anybody. How can any statement be made concerning that which is not visible anywhere to anybody? It is neither something made nor something not made. Neither an effect nor a cause, neither skandhas nor noskandhas, nor indeed is it of any other composition. It is not something that is subject to discrimination and hence perceptible, nor is it for that reason to be understood as non-existent. It is the very nature of things as they are. Non-being goes along with being, and being goes along with non-being. When non-being is not knowable, being too is not to be discriminated. Those who cling to words only, not comprehending the egolessness of an ego so-called, are drowned in dualism. They destroy themselves, they destroy the ignorant. When they see any teaching shorn of all faults, they then see things rightly. They do not vilify the leaders. Single quote. The Lankavatara is quite anxious to have us realize that the theory of non-ego does not conflict with that of the Tathagata's womb, of which mention is made in various connections. When the Tathagata Gava is spoken of as a kind of storage where all the seeds of the past deeds and psychical activities are preserved, philosophers are apt to take it for an ego soul. But, says the Lankavatara, the Tathagata Gava is empty in its nature yet real. It is nirvana itself, unborn, without predicates, without affections, and, further, it is attained where no false discrimination takes place, where no shadow of particularization falls. There is nothing here for the Buddhas or Bodhisattvas to take hold of as an ego soul. They have gone beyond the sphere of discriminations and judgments. And it is due to their wisdom and skillful device that they set up all kinds of names and phrases in order to save their followers from mistaken views of reality. Hence the following. O Mahamati! It is like the potter who, out of a mass of atoms of clay of one kind, produces various kinds of vessels by applying on it his artistic skill and manual labor, knowing how to make use of the stick, water, and string. Just so, O Mahamati, is the Tathagata who points out the egolessness of things, the truth transcending everything characteristic of discrimination by a variety of skillful means, which is joined with prajna. That is, sometimes by the doctrine of Tathagata Gava, and sometimes by the doctrine of non-ego, or sometimes like the potter by the aid of words, suggestions, and synonyms. For this reason, O Mahamati, the doctrine of Tathagata Gava is not the same as the doctrine of ego as advocated by the philosophers. Thus indeed the doctrine of Tathagata-gāva is taught by the Tathagatas in order to induce the philosophers advocating the ego theory, which latter in a superficial way may be regarded as resembling the Buddhist conception of Tathagata-gāva, and further indeed in order that those who have fallen into the view of discriminating an unreal ego as real may become possessed of the realm of the triple emancipation and speedily realize the highest supreme enlightenment. For this reason the Tathagatas, who are arhats and fully enlightened ones, talk of the doctrine of Tathagata-gāva, which is thus to be differentiated from the ego theory of the philosophers. Therefore, O Mahamati, in order to keep thyself away from the ego theory of the philosophers, thou shouldst seek the doctrine of the Tathagata-gāva that is based on non-ego. Pudgala, Samtati, continuity, Skanda, Pratyaya, Pradhana, Lavara, Khatri. Some such ideas are entertained by the philosophers, but they are mere constructions of mind. The world transcending knowledge. The inner consciousness of the Buddha, which constitutes the essence of Buddhahood, is the highest form of knowledge. Of knowledge the Lankavatara distinguishes three forms: worldly knowledge, supra-worldly knowledge, and supreme supra-worldly knowledge. The first is relative, as cherished by ordinary minds whose thinking is determined by ideas of being and non-being. The second is one possessed by Hinayanists who cannot go beyond the categories of particularity and generality. While the third and highest is the knowledge attained by the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas who view the world from an absolute standpoint. For they know that the world is beyond all characteristics, that is, has never been brought into existence and will never be annihilated, that it is designable neither as being nor as non-being. It is by means of this highest knowledge that the Bodhisattva finally comes to the realization of the egolessness of all things, thus entering upon the path of Tathagatahood. Supreme supra-worldly knowledge is none other than the supreme wisdom of the Bodhisattva, which enables him to enter into the inmost nature of all the Buddhas, and which constitutes the central theme of the Lankavatara Sutra. Its three aspects are now distinguished. The first is its not being mere appearance, that it is reality, as distinguished from the way it is regarded generally by the Hinayanists and philosophers. The second is that it is awakened by the will and power of all the Buddhas. That is to say, supreme wisdom is aroused in the mind of the Bodhisattva by virtue of the Buddha's earnest desire for universal enlightenment and salvation. Their earnest desire or will sends out strong waves of vibration throughout the universe, and all sentient beings there feel its effect according to their capacities. Thirdly, sustained by this and going beyond the relative knowledge of the Hinayanists, the Bodhisattva's mind is freed from all predicable forms and is ready for realizing in himself a psychic state termed Mayopamasamadhikaya. This means the body attained by a Bodhisattva when he enters into the samadhi known as Maya-like, that is, the samadhi that enables one to look intuitively into the nature of existence and realize that it has no self-substance and is like Maya. The following passage will shed light on the Maya-like samadhi. The Tathagata, for the sake of the Bodhisattvas whose minds are still distracted by individuality and generality, preaches the path of particularization based on their relative knowledge of existence. When the nature of relative knowledge and particularization is fully comprehended, they are able to realize the egolessness of an individual person and an external object, and gain an insight into the stages of bodhisattvahood. They will pass beyond the jhanas, samadhis, and samapatis belonging to the Sravaka, Pratyeka Buddha, and philosopher, and walk on the path and enter into the realm of Tathagatahood, which is outside the ken of the ordinary understanding. They will abandon the path belonging to the 5 dharmas and embellish themselves with the highest wisdom, which comes from the Dharmakaya of all the Tathagatas. And entering into the realm of Maya will visit all the Buddha lands, abide in the palace of Tushita and reach the highest place where they will obtain the Tathagata body. Maya, Sunyata, Anutpati, Apravahita, Nirabhasa, they are all synonymously used in the Lankavatara. The Bodhisattva is now fairly on the way to the final stage of Buddhist discipline. Lane Buddhism, no distinction is made between knowledge and knower. Supreme wisdom is at once the inner perception and the mental power that brings about this perception. This is quite in accordance with the general mode of thinking in Buddhism. For if there is something at the back of the knowledge, or if this is the function of a certain higher faculty of the mind, there will be a dualism which is so strongly combated by the Mahayanists. Knowledge after all must be absolute. So prajna, which is the same thing as ayajfuina, is described as one of the 6 parameters in the following manner. 1. As the Hinayanists cling to the idea of nirvana for their own spiritual enjoyment, they are unable to think of the welfare of their fellow beings. With the Mahayanists it is different, they are ever bent on practicing the 6 parameters in their highest possible form. And, therefore, in prajna their minds are free from false discrimination. Because they are awake to the suchness of reality, they do not fall into any of the opposing predicates. They are thus able to cause a revulsion in the whole field of their consciousness, though this does not mean that they destroy the work of their own past karma. Prajna thus leads them finally to the realization of the inmost truth deeply concealed under the wrappings of attachment and intellectualism. Doctrine of the Triple Body. When the Lankavatara was compiled, the doctrine of the triple body was apparently not yet formulated in the shape we have it today. We thus have terms corresponding to the 3 bodies and the indications of the underlying idea, but no specified relationship is established between them. Only the absolute state of self-realization is considered as belonging to the Dharmata-Buddha, who is evidently the Dharmakaya of the later periods. There are other forms of Buddhahood known as Nishyanda-Buddha and Nirmala-Buddha. Nishyanda literally means flowing down, or flowing into, and the Nishyanda-Buddha is a Buddha into whom Dharmata flows and who shines in splendor. The 2 later Chinese translators have rendered it as Pao Fo, la meaning, to requite, to compensate, while the sung by Gunabhadra has meaning, to depend, to rely upon. The latter is nearer to the sense of the Sanskrit Nishyanda, and it is hard to know how the later translators came to have Pao for it instead of I. Did they try to read their own thought into it? For they were doubtless acquainted in their own day with the doctrine of Trikaya, one of which, generally known as Sambhogakaya, corresponds to Vipakaja, or Vipakastha in the Lankavatara. The other form of the Buddhahood mentioned in the Lankavatara is Nirmika, or Nirmajika, or Nirmana. This is generally done into Chinese by i.e. Transformation Buddha, corresponding to the Nirmapakaya of the triple body. As to what this transformation Buddha is, the sutra does not offer any explanation.